Hello and welcome to all of our viewers from around the world. I'm Fiona Langsharp, IBCLC Director of Communications and MC here at Gold Learning. Well, welcome to all of you joining us here today. We are sitting down with one of our very special speakers who's going to be coming up here at our Gold Learning Birth and Beyond Online Symposium 2022. Now, this event is coming up. It's right around the corner, October 17th. We are going to go live. I can't wait. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, but I want you to be able to have the opportunity to check it out all right now. So you can go to our website at goldlearning.com and check out all the details of this event. Of course, early bird registration is still in play. How exciting is that? So you can get yourselves a little bit of cost savings today if you go and register for this event. Now, I want to introduce to you one of our presenters who is going to be here with us today. So welcome to you, Paul Florsheim. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, Paul, I would love it if you would just introduce yourself. I mean, tell folks who you are, what you do, where you are, all the deets. We want all the details.
I am a professor at the Zilber School of Public Health at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I'm a clinical psychologist by training and was in a psychology department before moving over to public health for many years. And so, I work at sort of the crossroads of public health and mental health with a particular focus on parenting and transition to parenting.
Ah, fantastic. So you're doing a lot of teaching and mentoring, I can imagine.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. That's wonderful. So tell me, I mean, this is an area we were just talking off camera there and about this particular topic, father inclusive type of education in the birth world that still doesn't get a lot of press. So tell me, is this something that you wanted to dive into? How did you come to want to talk about this, share about it, and see sort of the sort of urgency that this needs some attention?
That's a very long story. And I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And I started off really with just trying to understand young fathers as they transition to parenthood. I wasn't doing any kind of intervention work in the beginning. I was just following young fathers. And what I learned early on is that the best way to find young expectant fathers is to find young expectant mothers and then work with those moms to recruit their partners into the study.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I learned was that I was very interested in their relationship because we had these couples coming in together and got very interested in the relationship and following that relationship over time, seeing sort of what happened to them, beginning to develop some ideas about, one of the most interesting group of fathers were the ones who really looked like they were not going to do particularly well, but ended up doing really quite wonderfully as fathers. And that got us thinking about, well, how do we facilitate that? How do we make that happen? So we started to work on intervention models, and it's evolved over the years. So originally, we were focusing exclusively on co-parenting, and now we do co-parenting along with some sort of basic parenting skills. So that's sort of the long evolution of it, and we're still working on it. I mean, I have a project going in Chicago right now where we're still trying to perfect it and test whether it's doing what we want it to do.
Oh, so interesting. Because I mean, to me, obviously I work in some clinical work, lots of education, but thinking about the research that you're doing, this is where I get to educate parents. And just by chance, your name came up in conversation the other day with some parents that I'm working with, young adults, first baby. And I just happened to mention that I had been talking to you about how important this was and to the father. And he grabbed onto it right away, in terms of just, thinking about his role, how it's working, the mother is breastfeeding and he's trying to juggle everything else and, how it could impact his mental health. He recognizes now he's sort of in the real deep woods of brand new parenting. So are we seeing a shift? That's what I wanted to know, because he seemed to pick up right away what I was putting down, essentially. But are we seeing a shift in these fathers? What are we seeing in the research? Are they wanting to know more? Are they doing better overall? Or are we still sort of, are they still trying to find their footing? What are we seeing?
My belief is that we're definitely seeing a shift in the course of my professional lifetime. I feel as though fathers are more invested, are more engaged. I mean, I think it's been a long time, truth that if you talk to a young expectant father or an expectant father who isn't young, generally speaking, they want to be good fathers, and they want to.
Right.
They're excited about having a baby, but the difference between sort of what I did as a father and what my father did as a father or my grandfather is quite dramatic in terms of the amount of time spent, and then of course how our kids are going to be fathers, I think, is going to change even more, where gender roles are becoming more fluid, and I see that as
Right.
a positive thing. And so it's not like fathers do this and mothers do that. There can be a lot of sharing of roles and responsibilities, and that's very I think that people in general are picking up on that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I don't think has changed a whole lot is institutions aren't necessarily picking up on
Okay.
it. And so one of the things that we're trying to do, this idea of coming up with the term father inclusive prenatal care, is that we really want institutions like prenatal care settings, clinics, hospitals, to integrate father focus and father inclusive services into the array of services that are already being offered. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been very, very slow, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think culturally too, I get asked all the time when I set up a prenatal appointment, does my husband need to be here? I get asked, I would say 100% of the time, does he need to be here? Not, is it okay he can be there? It's, does he need to be there? Like, who do you need to meet with? Because
Hmm.
I teach a private prenatal class. So I find that very interesting that there's still this sort of culture of thinking that it's not any of his business, or he doesn't need to learn it, or somehow the message is going to get passed on. But that's just not true. Of course we want him there. I always say that, but and I can't be in the minority, surely, Paul. I mean, there must be practitioners everywhere like me who are saying, yes, bring everybody, get the both parents there, right?
Oh, definitely. But I think that you're right. It is a cultural thing. And I think once you sort of switch that switch,
Mm-hmm.
and say, we're trying to be father inclusive. I mean, we do this with, with the pregnant women. We know that you have services, and we want your partner to have services too.
Yes.
And when we say that to the prenatal providers, and they know that these relationship issues are an important part of the mother's, transition to parenthood, and how she's getting along, and how they're working together is a big factor in the pregnancy and the early postpartum period. And so they recognize to some extent that the father is important, but not necessarily recognizing what we can do about it. So when
Right.
we say, here's something we can do, we'd like to be partners with you and your clinic, it's a pretty easy sell, both to the moms and to the prenatal providers. Institutionally, as I said, it's a
Right.
little more
That's
challenging.
your gap. That's the
Yeah.
gap as well. Yeah. No, it is certainly very interesting. And I have to say that some of the things I think, it's almost like we talk a good talk. I feel like I do. I talk a good talk. I can sell the families on the fact that of course, we're going to incorporate fathers. We want them to be part of this whole process and so forth and so on. But I'll tell you, and maybe, you can correct me, Paul, if I'm wrong, but I feel like resources for fathers are still very limited. We don't have a plethora of resources that are focused on just the father, that don't, that the in terms of, pregnancy books, postnatal books, even support, breastfeeding books for just focused on that role. Is that true? Are we getting better? I mean, you probably have lots of resources, right? But but I feel generally I'm lacking.
I do think that there are more and more resources. I mean, I think we are catching up. And one of the things that I do that's a little bit different is that the work that I do really is intended to be father inclusive, meaning that it is, and I really would, in some ways, I prefer the word family inclusive because it's a more inclusive word.
Of course, yes.
But I do feel the reason I focus on fathers is that fathers are so often left out, as you mentioned. And so I
Right.
want to
Yeah.
sort of make a point of that. But I try to provide what we do, these services, as together. And we really make a point of saying together as co-parents, not necessarily together as a romantic couple. And that's an important piece of this program. We know, because I've worked with very young parents for quite a long time, that many of these relationships won't necessarily last. But the importance of giving these couples skills and supporting them in how they work together is just as important for those couples who do not stay together as a romantic couple as it is for those who do. So
that's a
the reason
great
that
value.
we do it with them together is that we want them to continue to work together.
Right. So if there is essentially a split in the romantic relationship, this co-parenting would have a solid foundation, so they would know how to continue it if there was some amount of separation at some point.
Right. And that's always a difficult thing to go through. And so, the extent to which we can sort of support them, even preventatively, like may not see them go through that, but we know that something will later on. Those skills will be useful for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've got so much to learn here. I'm very excited. Thank you so much for just sharing a little bit of a snippet here. And of course, we have you live coming up at the symposium with the topic title, Father Inclusive Prenatal Care, Co-Parenting Support for Expectant Fathers and Mothers. So this is going to be an awesome opportunity to sit down with you further. I know you've got a great presentation planned for us for this event, but of course, you will be here with us live, and you and I'll have a chance to sit down and have a live Q&A, which means that our folks who are listening in right now will be able to sit and ask you some further questions, which I'm very excited about. It's always good to be able to reach our speakers live at the event. So thank you so much, Paul, for being with me here today.
Thank you, Fiona.
And again, for folks listening in, don't forget, register today and save on the early bird pricing. Attend live on October 17th and 18th. This is going to be absolutely fantastic for all our perinatal and postpartum care professionals from around the world. Our Gold Learning Birth and Beyond Online Symposium 2022 is coming to you live. Now, if you're not available for those 2 days, or perhaps you can only come for one or the other, do not worry. It will be a fully recorded event and you'll be able to watch it at your convenience. You can check it out right now at goldlearning.com for all the details. Thank you again today for Paul for joining me, and of course to all of our audience. Bye-bye for now, everyone.
Bye-bye.